Hello, everyone. Welcome to my studio. My name is Jen of Nectar Bloom, and I'm so excited to be with you today during SunnyFest to teach you a class on floral arranging. A little bit about me: I am a floral artist and educator. I started my design studio about 7 or 8 years ago, and I've been flowering weddings, events, doing brand partnerships and activations, and teaching online courses, as well as in-studio design workshops and destination workshops as well in floral design ever since. And I'm thrilled, like I said, to be part of SunnyFest. I'm so excited to be working with and enjoying Sunny's wines with you today. A couple of things that I love about Sunny wines are that they are, first of all, Sunny with a chance of flowers, how dear to my heart as someone who works with and creates with flowers. Secondly, I love that Sunny wines are all about the good vibes and the good experiences. I love good vibes, and good wines feel so much like what I care about in my brand, which is bringing the good vibrations and the positive experiences of touching flowers, of creating with flowers, and of sharing the experience of being close to the beauty of nature with other people and with ourselves as a meditative practice when we create with flowers. And I love that Sunny Wines is all about that connection and that positive experience. Also, as a floral artist, because I work with an artistic medium that comes from the earth, I am passionate about and I teach about sustainability in floral design. So trying to source locally with flowers, how to reuse packaging, and how to not design with floral foam, which is actually a single-use plastic and is toxic. So we'll be using mechanics that will hold up our flowers that are sustainable. And I love that about Sunny Wines as well, that their sustainability mission includes that they are 100% wind powered. How amazing is that? They recycle all of their water back into the vineyards, and they recycle all of the grape refuse as well. So I just feel like this is such an aligned connection between what I can offer you and what we are here to enjoy together with Sunny. So with that in mind, welcome to this class. I'm going to be teaching you how to create a monobloomed or a single variety sculptural elevated kind of centerpiece that is actually really easy but gives you a really beautiful elevated look. It's also the type of arrangement that you can create with 1 or 2 bunches of the same flowers. So it's a unique look, but it's something that gives you a really beautiful and impactful arrangement to give to someone as a gift, or to have on your table when you have your friends over for a glass of wine, or whatever you would like to do. But I like to teach this because it's both an upscale kind of look, an artistic designer style look, and it's also very accessible and doable. So you don't have to feel like you have to be a professional floral designer to enjoy the act of creating this and to enjoy the beauty that you create. So whenever I talk about teaching in my flower classes, I always talk about the tools and materials that we need, the flowers and the color palette and things like that. So we'll dive into that. But first, I just want to mention that the flowers that I've chosen for this arranging class, these are ranunculus. They are beautiful, pinky, peachy color. They're kind of a bubbly looking flower, if you ask me, and they're very much inspired by the rosé bubbles that Sunny makes, which we're going to open and have a little sip of together. So I actually have their Sauvignon Blanc here as well, but I found that I was most curious about and wanted to try and share with you the bubbly rosé, especially because I thought it would be fun to pair the colors and style of our flowers with the wine. So if you want to join me, grab a little wine opener and a glass, and maybe we'll pour ourselves a little rosé. Opener is kind of a tool, but it doesn't necessarily work that well. It's like a little panther. So bear with me. There we go. So I love rosé bubbles, and I'm so excited to try this. Also, it's pretty cool that Sunny's wines are 0 sugar, low alcohol content, and that's pretty awesome because it makes it better for having a day drink if you're going to be doing this design class during the day. And so it's like a lighter drinking experience. So cheers, let's try this out. Oh, truly so nice, so crisp, so fresh. I love a rosé that's got that tangy, sort of thirst quenching quality. It's delicious. Okay, well, that demo aside, I'm not a professional wine taster, but I certainly love my wine. I wanted to share that with you, and we can sip along during the design process. But think about when you're choosing your flowers, what would be fun to pair with your wine? You can go by the color as inspiration. You can go by the shape and style of the flowers as your inspiration. You can see here in the background, I have some garden roses from my garden, and they're just gigantic and beautiful. Also in the color palette, I thought about using these, but actually they're a little bit enormous. So try to find a flower for this arranging class that's kind of like medium sized. They can be large, but these are so full that it would kind of fill up what we're going to do. And this kind of design style has a lot to do with negative space. So if you love peonies or garden roses, you can use them, just maybe use a larger bowl. I also have tulips back here, and I've done this arrangement style many times with tulips. These are just opening. There are larger varieties. You can wait till they're more open, but I wanted to show you a few other options also in our color palette. And feel free to choose whatever flowers inspire you. If you're working with flowers and you want to have the Sauvignon Blanc, maybe you want to choose some white or green variegated leaves or something like that for your florals. Or if you want to use a Pinot Noir or something that's red, you could use more of the red colors and red tones. So feel free to play with the sensory experience. We want you to have this meditative, this positive, and this engaging experience that brings you into the present moment when you work with flowers. So choosing your flowers is a big part of that. Also, I want you to know, even though I'm a professional floral designer, I have access to the wholesale markets. You don't have to. You can get flowers for this class and for this design process just at Trader Joe's or at your local supermarket or at anywhere that you can get a hold of flowers. I also recommend checking out your local farmers markets. So it's great to get flowers from local growers. So have a look around, have fun with it, but let it be easy for you. We want this to be an easygoing and a really enjoyable process for you. So that's a little bit about how I choose my flowers, why I've chosen these ranunculus for this wine pairing, because I think that's a lot of fun. And now let's talk about our mechanics. And when I say mechanics, what I mean are the structures that we'll use to support the flowers in the design. I'll also mention the different kinds of tools that I have here, just so you know what to get. Everything I have here you can find on Amazon, easy. So again, don't be intimidated. Sometimes it seems like floral design is something that's meant for someone who has had some kind of degree in it. And I just want to encourage you to enjoy learning and playing with color, with nature, and with the wine. I actually started in floral design and was so intimidated because I had come from an academic career. I thought, I'm never going to be able to do this. I need to get a whole other degree. I already have a graduate degree, but now I'm switching fields. And turns out you don't have to have any kind of degree in this. It does help to educate yourself, and that's why we're here. So talking about the tools and materials before I get ahead of myself with what we are going to create. We need some kind of ceramic bowl is perfect. You can actually use any bowl that you have, even a cereal bowl that you use, as long as it has a flat bottom, because we're going to be mounting within it what is called a floral pin frog or a floral frog. This is a traditional type of floral mechanics, and it's also sometimes called a Kenzen, and it's, like I said, available on Amazon. They come in different sizes too. This is about, I think, a 2.5 inch one, which is what I have in this bowl because it's larger, but they have smaller ones too, even teeny tiny 1 inch ones for a little bowl like this. So, and I want to show you another one. This is a larger one in a smaller bowl. So you have options. I would recommend getting one. I'd recommend getting the 2.5 inch one, or at least a 2 inch, just so you have a little more real estate to be placing your flowers, because basically these little pins are what we are going to be sticking our stems into. Don't worry, it holds the flowers in place, but it doesn't block how they drink water. So they'll be fine. It's actually kind of an amazing and really fun process. The other thing you will need for this kind of mechanics in your bowl is some floral putty. This is the kind that I have. You can also find something like this on Amazon. You don't have to go to the floral supply stores, but it's basically a floral adhesive and it's just like a silly putty. So it's not silly, it's very sticky. I'll show you how we put the two together. It's pretty sticky, so it even sticks itself together in this box. But it comes apart in a little roll like this. So you'll tear off a chunk, set it aside, and then it's kind of in a flat little strip, which is perfect. So we're going to take this and just basically line it up carefully close to the edge of the pin frog. And this is just an example, so I'm not doing this perfectly, but I will tell you exactly what to do. So you see how I've lined it up along the edge flat, and then I would tear off another piece and just flat fill it up in there. So we don't want it to be a big bubble of putty. We also don't want it to not cover the whole thing, because basically this is going to be our seal that's going to help make this watertight and stay in place when we fill the vessel with water. So we're going to put on another piece of the putty, and then here's where we'll stick it into the bowl. So imagine that there isn't one in here, and we're going to place it down in the bottom of the bowl. And I want you to press down from the sides. Be careful, you don't want to press onto the pins, so hurt your fingers. Press down the sides and twist. And just try to really secure it down there. I'm actually making it pretty airtight on my hand, showing you how to do this. But that's your first step, is getting the putty on the bottom. And again, fill it all the way in flat. Place it down, wiggle and twist it while you're pressing down. And then what I recommend to make sure that it's set, make sure you can see this, is to use something like an old pair of floral shears or a pair of snips or clippers like this. Not a nice pair. It's not going to ruin them, but I just take really good care of my floral shears so they stay sharp, so that I can cut stems without damaging them. But get a pair like this, which also are available on Amazon, and just go in between the pins and press down, just to make sure that you're getting that really pressed down in the bowl, right? I'm just showing you this as an example. Another thing that you can do, this is just a pad of sticky notes or Post-its, because that will protect your hand. You can use that to press down. That's the hardest part, honestly. And now watch, it's going to be stuck to my Lazy Susan. There you go. That's how we mount the pin frog. So all you really need for this is the ceramic bowl, the pin frog, and the mounting putty. And then you can use your floral or maybe your garden snips that aren't super nice, and make sure to mount it down. One other tip for this type of design is just to make sure that your bowl is completely dry before you put this in. You may be thinking at this moment like, gosh, this seems like a lot of work. We've been talking about the mechanics for a while, but I do always teach that I'd say maybe about 80% of floral design is the mechanics, more so when we're doing big installations that fill up the whole space. But you really want your flowers to be secure and steady where you place them, because our worst nightmare would be to start designing and make something beautiful and then it slips out and falls. Granted, it's not really the worst nightmare in the world, because you can just start over. So don't worry, be gentle with yourself. Remember to breathe while you design. Let this be a fun learning experience, a meditative experience, and just keep in mind that you do want to have those mechanics secure. And like I said, the worst case scenario really isn't a big deal. So pretty easy, pretty upfront. Hopefully that all makes sense. And once you have your vessel prepped, the other tools that I have are just a simple Lazy Susan. This is really helpful for when you're designing, just to make sure that you design from all angles. And I'll show you in the design process why and how we do that. Otherwise, I just need some floral scissors or floral shears. Either one will work. I actually like having both. This is more of the Japanese floral scissors style. And then I love having my bypass shears as well, because these are better for branchier stems, but honestly, they work for anything. So don't feel like you have to have two. I just like to show you all the options. Then of course you need your flowers, and that is it. We're ready to go. I have a little sip of my bubbly over here to get more inspired. Ooh, I love how light and dry that is. It's really wonderful. It's not sweet at all, which I love. I think whenever I try rosé that's like, you order it from the restaurant and it's like really dark and syrupy, I'm like, oops, I don't like the super sweet one. So it's actually really nice. All right, are we ready to design? Got everything set up? Even if you're not designing along with me, just take this in like you would a cooking class or anything like that, and take notes if you want to. You can probably return to the class afterward and let yourself enjoy putting it into practice when you have everything assembled and you can make some space and time for it. So one other really important ingredient to this setup is water. Do you need water? So once your pin frog is mounted, again, that's what it looks like. Nice and flat down on the bottom of the bowl. And again, make sure that whatever size pin frog you get fits in a completely flat part of the bowl. You don't want to have one that's large and doesn't quite sit flat. Once that is secured, then we need the water. So I'm gonna grab my watering can. And what we want to make sure is that the pin frog pins are completely covered, because again, that's where your stems are going to be mounted. And we want to make sure that they have plenty of water covering them, and actually about an inch over if possible. So I'm actually going to fill this up pretty full, maybe leave like, I always think of like the top of my finger. That's where I should meet the water within the vessel. So get that in there. Now just be careful as you twist and turn, because it's full of water. Again, it's not such a big deal if it spills, but just being careful. And the reason I put more water in here than maybe just covering the pins, like it's actually about a finger's depth until I hit the pins, is because flowers are always drinking water. It's kind of amazing if you get flowers for your project and you put them in water, and if you were to watch over a few hours, that water would go down quite a bit. Sometimes that seems obvious, and sometimes that seems kind of surprising how much they drink. But even if you are going to arrange in this kind of style and keep it for a couple of days, you'll need to top off the water, because the flowers are drinking. So they're hydrating themselves. They have been cut from their roots, so they're really, their only nourishment is the water. So just a little bit about flower care. Also, before we get started, I just wanted to give you a really quick little empowering tip about how to care for flowers and how to process them. So chances are you'll go to your supermarket, buy a bunch of flowers. Like I said, you could use peonies, you could use ranunculus, you could use tulips, you could even use roses, you could even use something like snapdragons, really anything that's kind of fun and gestural and in the color palette you want to do. And they come usually in a plastic sleeve. So if you can, get them home right away so that they're not out of water for too long. Sometimes I will take a small bucket, put some water in it, and float another bucket on top of it, if this makes sense. It's like all my little florist tricks. And I'll take that with me in the passenger side on the floor to the place where I'm going to buy flowers. The reason I float the second bucket on top is so the water in there doesn't splash around. It's kind of a cool little trick. And then that way, when I get flowers, I can just put that floated bucket underneath, and I can put the flowers right in water and transport them home in water. The more you can have flowers in water, the happier and healthier and longer they will live. They will be. Happier, healthier they'll be, and the longer they'll live. And so just keep that in mind. If you do need to drive them home off of water, that's totally fine. Either way, just make sure when you get them home to unwrap them, give them a fresh cut, and put them in fresh water. Make sure there aren't a lot of leaves in the water too, because the leaves will break down and cause bacteria and stuff. So I'm giving you the nth degree, but mainly because I want you to have as much fun as possible with flowers, and to just have the little tips and tricks, and just to know the inside stuff. You don't have to have flower food as long as you have clean water. The most important thing is just to like clean and refresh that water if you have an arrangement over many days. So that's a little bit about processing. Before you design, let your stems, let your flowers hydrate for a little while. So I actually have had these hydrating for several hours just to let them relax and open up. You'll often see flowers that you buy in a bunch like that will be a little bit withered or a little bit wilty looking because they're just a little bit dehydrated, or they've been in a cooler, so they're cold. So if you let them relax, room temperature, fresh water, they'll open up. And actually, if I could have shown you a before and after, these opened up about twice the size they were when I got them. So, now we've talked about everything you need to know about our setup, about our tools and materials, about our flowers, even some flower care. So let's start designing. this kind of sculptural design is inspired by ikebana. It's a style in Japan of kind of a whimsical and negative space sort of sculptural look. It's not 100% this. I'm just letting you know a little background. But basically, we're going to use one type of flower, and we're going to play with different levels, heights, and angles, and keeping in mind the negative space to create this beautiful sculptural arrangement that pairs simplicity with a really delightful kind of effect. So first thing I'm going to do is start pretty low. I know that's kind of scary to cut something really, really low, but trust me, it's nice to have the lower, medium, and upper levels. That's also part of the ikebana tradition, is to have basically the level of the earth, the level of people on earth, the level of life, and the level of the heavens or the sky. And it's just, again, a kind of design guideline. As you place flowers, make sure that your stem is secured on or in between the pins. So I don't want to place it and then it's going to fall over. If it does, make sure you replace it. And now we just get to sink in and enjoy playing with this experience. So if I have one that's shorter that we'll begin with, I'm going to do my second a little bit longer. If you've ever heard the carpentry adage, measure twice, cut once, because of course, once you've cut the wood or whatever it is, you can't make it any longer. It's the same with flowers. So I sometimes will hold my flower up and estimate where I want that to be. And I'm facing it toward you so you can see, but I can face it toward myself. And that way I know where to cut it. And if anything, err on the side of a little longer, you can always trim it down. I also got 2 bunches of these just so I have a little bit extra, just like a chef who maybe is creating strawberry shortcake or something as a dessert for their menu. They probably have to order twice as many strawberries as they think they need, because sometimes some are spoiled or some have bugs, holes on them or whatever. And it's the same with flowers. Sometimes you get one that's like a little bit funky, or maybe the stem breaks. So you just always want to have a little margin of extra. So in addition to playing with these 3 levels, I'm also thinking about a 360-degree effect. Imagine that this is going to sit in the middle of a table that you and your friends sit around while you're catching up and having a little drink of wine. And so we want it to be engaging and beautiful from all different angles. And that's what's nice about the Lazy Susan. If I didn't mention before, any Lazy Susan will do. Don't feel like it has to be anything fancy. So I'm going to place something. You can really slow down and let this be kind of a mindful process. Where do I want this one to appear? And so now, even though we're just beginning, there's a flower looking toward you here, there's a flower looking toward you here, there's a flower looking toward you here. Also paying attention to this negative space, right? We can also place a flower here and here. So I want to create this kind of layered and angled composition. And also keep in mind, along with different heights and lengths, along with different layers and angles through which you view it, you also want to have basically a difference in the flower shape, or maybe the way the flower is facing. I always think of a flower as like something that's almost like a face in painting and art. You'll have compositions where it's very important where the subject's face is looking, because the viewer looks at the face of the subject and follows their eyes. And it's kind of the same with flowers. Wherever these flowers are pointing is kind of the way that they're directing the viewer's gaze. So if we had all the flowers pointing outward, it's kind of like everyone ignoring each other and looking away, and the energy falls out of the composition. Whereas if you have different angles where maybe this flower is looking inward or up toward this one, then we have an energy moving through the composition that you want. In any kind of art, you want to invite a viewer to have an experience where they're moving through visually and staying in the composition. So play around with it. It's fun to, like I said, to also pay attention to the different sizes and shapes. So this one is a little bit more bloomed, a little bit larger. This one's still a little bit more of a bud, or a little bit smaller. And that's fun too, to play with the different, along with levels and angles and heights. We also can play with the different levels of bloom. So I think it makes a more nature-inspired arrangement to have different sizes, because it's almost like how things grow in nature. There are going to be certain blooms that are older and they're almost fully bloomed out. There'll be certain blooms that are in the midst of blooming, and there'll be certain buds that are just about to bloom. And that's how nature does it. And nature is our greatest inspiration, the true artist that we always emulate. So I'm going to place this one almost as though it's looking up toward the other. So I know we only have one angle for the class for you to see, but the center of this one is looking up toward this one. So I've started low. I actually might even make this one a tiny bit lower, because I want to have these different levels, and I want these to be on the same plane. I want one to be a little bit lower than the other. So know that you can also pop a flower out and adjust it and pop it back in as you like. Love it. So now, if you can see as I go along, we're playing with this 360-degree view, playing with this composition. One note I want to give you as well, as I'm going along, it's stuck down the putty. I was going to show you a different pin frog. I'm placing all of my stems close to the center, and they're angling out from there as if this is the center of the plant that they're growing from. Obviously, I'm going to be placing some stems a little bit further out as I go, but I'm kind of growing everything from the beginning, from the center outward. Again, just design pointers. Just want to share with you the different possibilities. So now, because I've got a base of these beautiful lower flowers, I'm going to use some of the small and even smaller, almost buds, to extend and give us a little more height. So, again, you see that I'll like hold it up and be like, where do I want this flower to be? And then I can eyeball, that's about where I need to cut this. It's the measure twice cut. Also, when you're designing, feel free to trim your stems, and you can set them on the table as I am, or let them fall on the floor. It's the beautiful mess. I want you to feel free to enjoy, to create. Don't worry about making a mess as you design the flowers. You can sweep it up afterward, and it's kind of part of the beauty and presence of it. So that one a little bit taller. I kind of like the height of this one. So you see how I'm not placing any of these directly vertically up and down. Each one has a little bit of an angle as it's spreading out from the center. So at this point, you can really just enjoy repeating what I've said, where you look for a place like, we don't have a flower here. Let's play with maybe a level that will take it up to here. So it's not the same as those two, but to bring a flower out this way. And maybe we need a lower flower here. Maybe we need a higher flower up here. So ask yourself, where would it feel good to see another flower as I build this composition? And let yourself enjoy it. Have a sip of wine whenever you want. Put on some music if you like. Let this be a you time, self-care, and a kind of meditative, as I said, moment for you to just create and have your hands in flowers, which I think is one of the most healing and inspiring things you can play with. I think even, especially as they are an ephemeral type of art, as in they're not going to last forever, it kind of brings a real presence to designing with them, where you're like, this is a really beautiful moment. This is like really good food or really good wine. It's not going to last forever, but you have it in that moment and it makes you present, and you share that with someone else, or you can give that to someone else if it's a floral arrangement. So just have fun with it as you go along. You can, as you see, I'm sort of being choosy about my flowers. I'm like, what kinds of different shapes and sizes do we have? That's another fun part of designing with one type of flower, is that instead of being, which is really fun to play with a lot of flowers, but instead of being sort of more focused on making a composition of different types of flowers and foliages, we're really just focusing on the beauty of this one type of flower. And when we do that, we focus in on the differences within it that we might not have noticed if we had 7 other different types of flowers to design with. We're like, this one's a little more yellow, and this one's a little more pink, and this one, like I said, is less bloomed, whereas this one's more bloomed. The larger blooms are almost a heavier weight, I would say. So sometimes those are better to do down low, whereas the lighter, smaller blooms are better to do up high. So we can keep all of those little fun things in mind as you play. Love that. So I almost want, if I could find a really, really tall one. I want somebody up here. Yes, perfect. Also, as you place your flowers, like I said, make sure they're secure in the pins. It's actually a really satisfying little like sinks in there. And this is just a little bit of an unbloomed bud, but I love this too. I think that this adds, again, almost like an honoring of the different cycles of life that are present in nature and that are present in us. We're going through different seasons of life. And I think in any art, we're looking for, I guess, an understanding or a mirror to see ourselves. And what a beautiful place to look for that in flowers. So you see how it's useful. In the beginning, we started with a low flower, and we've been alternating in these sizes and lengths and shapes as we go up. If you start in the beginning with the smallest pieces, it's a little bit harder to get in. So that's a good way to begin as well, with the lower pieces and then layering around. I'm really loving this. You can see how I don't have a blank background for you, but hopefully you can see it almost with me in the background, I guess. But you can see how each flower sort of has its moment. There's negative space. There's almost like a dance happening that you are composing as you place your flowers. And you can decide how many flowers to use. You could do a simpler number than I'm doing, and that would be fine. Remember that you can just play with how your flowers are facing. Here's a good example. See how this one almost looks to the side? So I can pay attention to where I want that to face to create an effect. So instead of having it flop out, I'm going to have it kind of turn sideways. And it'll be a little bit layered in front of that one. So it's going to pull you back into the composition as you look around. So as we finish up, I'm going to just place a few last flowers. Sometimes I'll look at my composition for like a really stemmy moment. Stemmy meaning like I see a lot of stems. Not that that's a problem, but maybe I place a lower piece down there to kind of give you something else to look at rather than just the stems. And again, that's because we're creating this 360-degree experience. I also think here we could probably have another medium level flower, just so it's not such a big difference between the small low one and these. So this is something I often teach my student designers, is because you don't always have the teacher there with you. Here's a tool for you. As you're finishing or as you're designing, ask yourself, what does this need to feel better? What does this need to feel more complete? And that question always gets an answer. When I have workshops of students in here and they're like, Jen, I don't know what to do now. It's feeling a little bit dense, or it's feeling a little bit funny, or it's something. I'll be like, well, what do you think it needs to feel a little better? And they'll be like, well, there's kind of like a hole here, and this part feels a little like unfinished, and whatever. They know, and you will know too. So have fun practicing that question. It's actually a really nice self-care and self-awareness question too. You could ask yourself throughout the day, what do I need to feel better? And what a nice thing to give yourself. So just want to give you that as a tool as well. And it's more empowering for you to have a tool that you can use whenever you need, instead of feeling like you need someone else to tell you what your composition is. So try it out. I think you'll be amazed, because you'll think, I need someone else to give me the answer. But if you ask yourself, and I am always amazed myself when I teach this, you will have the answer. You'll be like, oh, I need something right here. And that's exactly what it needs. So it's a nice way to build that trust with yourself too. Placed another little bud there. So there's almost like a balance between these two, and maybe a third here. Things in design look really nice in odd numbers. So if you have something, we have more than we need to count here, but If you have something like low, low, and high, then you have a triangle, or you have 5 different ones instead of things being on the same plane or things being like in 2s or 4s. When you have that odd number, it feels more natural. So there's another little piece for you. I'm actually really loving the dance that this is creating. And I hope when you design as well, that you really enjoy that too, and you see your arrangement come to life. And I know you will. A lot of times I get asked, how do you know when it's finished? And my answer will be, like I said, trust yourself, ask yourself, check in with yourself, what does this need? And at a certain point, you'll know. And I also recommend, again, maybe this is my last tip, and then we'll take a look at it and have a sip of wine to celebrate. But I also think it's important to take a step away. Whenever you've been designing anything, you're very close to it. You're in a meditative, kind of micro-focused state. And it's nice to finish your arrangement, or at least get to a point where you're like, I think it's done. And just step away, get a drink of water, go outside, do whatever is lovely. Call up a friend and say, hey, come have a glass of wine with me. I just made beautiful flowers that pair with the wine. It's going to be fun. And then when you come back to see your arrangement, you will be amazed, and this always happens, because it's better than you even thought. You thought maybe it wasn't finished, or you thought maybe you didn't do a very good job. You come back with fresh eyes and you're like, I love this. This is beautiful. And I think that's part of the magic, is just to remember to give yourself that space and give your design that space and see what happens, because you'll be very pleased. And wait till you see your friend's reaction to your arrangement too. They'll probably be like, this is amazing. I've never seen anyone not be full of hope and inspiration when I get them flowers. I think it's such a beautiful thing to see. People see flowers and they're just taking a breath. And what a beautiful gift to get to give that to people and to see that reaction happen, because it's almost a mirror. It gives that kind of hope and that kind of joy and that good vibes feeling back to you as well. So we've got a wild little party over here. If I had my way, I would want even one more, even taller piece right here. But because my stems are kind of short, I don't think any of my remaining pieces are long enough. No, I'm just going to adjust. And this is like a final edit where you might be like, does this need to feel better? Oh, I wish I had a taller piece. Sometimes it's actually taking something out and adjusting or changing it. So, as I've said throughout the whole class, please enjoy your process. Please enjoy the experience of discovering what feels good, what looks good, and what brings these flowers to life for you. So, as I finish up, I always do a little clean up my space just so I can see my design. Normally I just sweep these on the floor, but today I'm being extra tidy. One thing I didn't mention to you, but I'll just say here at the end, if you like, sometimes what I'll do is take a bucket, place it upside down, and I'll actually design on top of this bucket. I didn't do this today just so we could see each other better, and so this wouldn't get too tall and out of the frame, but this will help you design more at eye level for you instead of down. And again, I say that because I do this a lot, but so it might not bother you one day, but you might have a better time and be able to see your composition a little bit better if it's lifted up. So you can use any old bucket. You can even use a stack of books if you want, as long as it's okay if they get wet, which doesn't make sense. So don't use nice books, but even a box, that would be fine, an Amazon box or whatever. But something that will elevate your design so you can see it from eye level, because when you're sitting at a table, that's how you'll see it, not from above how you do designing. And actually, it's a really nice little feedback loop for a final piece. Well, my friends, pop this back over here. Thank you so much for being part of this class with me. Thanks for joining me with Sunny Wines for SunnyFest. I hope that you have such a wonderful time celebrating with this delicious wine, with this really wonderful brand that wants to bring you joy and connection and positive experiences. And I hope that you've enjoyed those same things designing with flowers with me. So cheers. What a lovely taste and what a lovely experience. And you can see, look, we've actually paired really well. I'm trying to, I feel like it actually looks lighter than it does when I hold it up from far away. It's a very beautiful light pink and goes really well with our flowers. So thank you again. My name is Jen. My business is Nectar Bloom. I hope to see you in a workshop or a class again soon. And again, enjoy SunnyFest. Excuse me. Enjoy SunnyFest. I will see you on the other side.